This episode of the Cloud Accounting Podcast is sponsored by LivePlan. Did you know that millions of small businesses use LivePlan products to start their business? Did you know that these small businesses prefer a cloud-based accounting solution 2 times more versus a desktop solution? Did you know that 89% of these small business owners prefer virtual advisory services? Did you know that the number one thing they want from an expert advisor is strategic planning and review? This is even more than general ledger accounting and bookkeeping services. Did you know that LivePlan has an expert advisory directory that you can join to gain access to these millions of small businesses? To learn more about becoming a LivePlan expert advisor, head over to cloudaccountingpodcast.com/LivePlan. That is cloudaccountingpodcast.com/LIVEPLAN. And be sure to check out the LivePlan method to learn how to grow and scale your advisory business. Welcome to the Cloud Accounting Podcast. I'm your host, David Leary.
And I'm Lori Davis with the Desktop Accounting Podcast.
And I'm Ollie Blaine, also with the Desktop Accounting Podcast.
Wow, Lori and Ollie, thanks for joining us. This is pretty exciting. You guys kind of got a lot of eyeballs when you guys first launched your Desktop Accounting Podcast. Got some people motivated. Some people reacted negatively to your podcast being launched. Even somebody created a paper accounting podcast, I think, mocking you. Nobody thought it was a serious thing. So we're here at Scaling New Heights. We're doing an in-person interview, which is exciting. Scaling New Heights started on Sunday. So it was yesterday, full day. And then today there's more training. And then tomorrow there's more. And Wednesday there's about a half day or full day of training. So there's 4 days of sessions. There's 4 days of apps. There's 4 days of information out there. What are you two looking forward to the most?
Well, for one thing, we are a little disappointed to see how little of the conference does actually really support the desktop user. Very, very few sessions this year. And we used to be able to come to Scaling New Heights and get a ton of information on those sessions. And so the ones that are really focused on desktop, like QuickBooks Desktop for Contractors, Part 1 and 2, Troubleshooting QuickBooks Desktop, Cash to Equity, Parts 1 and 2, those are some sessions that we're really interested in attending.
There's also some really great Excel sessions, which, as you know, I love Excel. It is, I at one time did everything in Excel and slowly moved over to desktop accounting. So I'm really excited for some of the special feature sessions. There is one session that's caught my eye: Excel, Google, or Zoho. Which spreadsheet is right for you and why?
Zoho is a spreadsheet?
Zoho?
Zoho?
I mean, I'm sure it's going to be an interesting session, but let's be honest. There is no contest. Excel.
All the way, baby.
All the way.
What would you say your feelings? I think you're right. Historically, I think at Scaling New Heights, it was always a little heavier desktop focused, and it's been transitioning. And what would you say the percentage of like sessions and just people's mindsets are we now at like 80-20 cloud versus desktop, or is it still 62?
Yeah, well, it's always been our theory that the desktop users continue to make up the majority of the people who attend the conferences, that we really do continue to be the silent majority. And so as far as the number of sessions here, I remember when we came a couple of years ago, it was probably 80% desktop and 20% online. And I'd say that's more than flopped. It's maybe 10% desktop classes now and 90% online. But
you feel like a lot of the attendees are still especially at this conference, still have a lot of clients on QuickBooks Desktop. They're still using desktop hosted solutions.
Right.
Oh, yeah. I mean, everybody wants to talk about the cloud, but let's be honest. The world runs on the desktop. Like, do you think, like, is Intuit running on cloud-based accounting software?
That I don't know.
See, I bet, the biggest companies in the world are not running cloud accounting software. They're running on desktop or server-based software, David.
In-house. And that's like Blake's in mid-market and heading towards enterprise market with Flowcast. So this would be his domain, but Blake's not with us today to discuss that more. So did you guys see Right Networks had a keynote yesterday, and Right Networks has been, for those listeners that maybe don't know, Right Networks hosts QuickBooks Desktop in the cloud. And they've been acquiring a couple companies. They acquired Transaction Pro Importer to get data in to QuickBooks Desktop. And they also acquired Propelware, which is software to help you sync your QuickBooks Desktop to other apps. And I wasn't sure in the keynote if I understood it correctly, and maybe I could get your guys' take, but it sounds like they were going to currently, I think if you have QuickBooks Desktop, you want to sync apps, you guys are the experts in this. You have to have QuickBooks open in order to sync data.
That's what you typically had to do in the past.
Versus cloud,
syncs every minute, all the time, which is great and all, but cloud comes with its own challenges as well.
Yeah, and I think the desktop does that for security, right? So you don't want some crazy app messing with your general ledger. And so that is a form of security.
It looks like Red Networks, at least the way they presented it, or it sounds like they're going to let, even when you're not logged into your Red Networks machine, is this correct? An app could actually still write to the data, which is going to give it a little bit more from a developer standpoint, an app perspective, a little bit more of a quote unquote cloud feel. Is desktop evolving into cloud?
Right. Well, I mean, my theory is, Right Networks is kind of doing that as far as, here they're supporting the desktop, but they're really in the cloud. So now we have some of the same challenges that we had with being in the cloud anyways. Now I have to have an internet connection to work with my desktop software. So I have a little bit of mixed feelings about the solution of the hosted desktop, because I feel like it really takes a lot of the advantages of being desktop based, some things we talked about in our last podcast, like you're never down, you never have to be around the internet. You can work on an airplane successfully without having to pay the extra fee. And now with Right Networks,
that adds up.
Right. It really does. And now with Right Networks, it's like you have to be on the cloud. It's like taking the desktop world and moving it to the cloud, which is great. And I'm glad to be able to use my tried and trusty desktop anywhere I go. But it does kind of leave me feeling a little bit longing for the world where I could just open my computer and go.
Desktop software now is on hosted environments, and pretty much you're at the same risk you are just using the regular cloud, like a desktop hosted cloud. If the internet's down, you can't access it.
Right.
You're on an airplane and the Wi-Fi's flaky, you can't access it, right? Whatever it is. If you're going to experience those problems anyways, accessing your desktop hosted solution, why not just shift all the way to cloud? I'm sorry.
Come on, David. The truth is, I haven't had downtime since August 4th, 2002. 16 years, 10 months, 13 days. So
your
server underneath your desk?
No, my laptop.
Your laptop. You don't have a server. This is your laptop.
No. I am. Well, I used to have a desktop.
Okay.
I guess, I should, you've exposed me. I use a laptop now. No, but I don't have downtime. It allows constant productivity. And we talked about that in our first episode, right? The power of constant productivity with the desktop.
That's interesting because I would put you guys in a lucky bucket, because I remember back in the day, a lot of listeners know, I was at Intuit for a very long time. I started out doing tech support. So I did tech support for QuickBooks DOS, for QuickBooks Desktop Windows, and people's computers, their hard drives would crash. Their house would get struck by lightning and they'd lose all their QuickBooks data, and they'd have to start over. They'd have to buy a new server, get a new hard drive. You've just been lucky. Right?
Oh, I've got a UPS. I get the best hard drives. It's doable now.
It's doable. It's doable. Any other Scaling New Heights highlights you want to call out? Did you see anything yet exciting?
Well, I'm excited to talk to Intuit. Intuit's coming out with a show of force, so I think we'll have a good chance to catch up with some desktop accounting professionals from Intuit, and I'm hopeful that they can give us the dirt on what's really going on.
I saw Intuit had some sort of Illuminati-looking thing on the hallway, some signs. Is that like a secret desktop society?
Maybe. I don't know.
Now, we were also thinking Desktop Accounting Podcast might need to start our own conference, since everyone else seems to be abandoning the desktop world, and we really deserve to be supported. We really are the silent majority on this. So back to our roots, people.
So I was going to actually ask you, what is next for the Desktop Accounting Podcast?
Been a real struggle to find good news. I feel like the media has turned their backs on desktop accounting. So it's really been a struggle to get the information. We have to really dive into release notes, and the companies they're kind of hiding their desktop products a little bit more. So it's been tough.
You guys are out there fighting the good fight, trying to find the stories, bring to the audience
fight.
Every day.
Start our own conference, start the movement. Back to our roots. # back to our roots.
Back to your roots. Enjoy the rest of the conference.
Thanks, David.
We'll see you around, and I'll see hi to Blake for you.
Yeah, sounds great.
And for any listeners out there that maybe want to tune into the Desktop Accounting Podcast or get a hold of you, what's the best way?
Just search for Desktop Accounting Podcast, and it will be the first search result.
And Twitter, you're on Twitter, the socials?
We do have a Twitter account, also Desktop Accounting Podcast. So you can find us there.
And we'll get you linked out in the show notes. So if you guys want to get a hold of, listen to the Desktop Accounting Podcast, definitely you'll have to look into the show notes.
Thanks for having us, David.
Thanks for joining us. Bye, Lori. Bye, Ollie. Bye, everybody.
This episode of the Cloud Accounting Podcast is sponsored by TOA Global. As you know, most firms struggle with attracting, managing, and retaining staff, and finding staff is getting tougher every day. This is where TOA Global can help. TOA Global is the most professional outsourcing partner to help you build and manage a global accounting team. By building a global team, you'll be able to take away the time-consuming process-oriented work from your local team while building a cost-effective team offshore. As people experts, TOA Global can help you select and develop your best team members easily using their expert ecosystem of people, security, technology, and professional development tools. To learn how to build your world-class team today, head over to cloudaccountingpodcast.com/TOA Global. That is cloudaccountingpodcast.com/TOAGLOBAL.